So this is the Carrera Crossfire e-bike, which I've recently purchased, and I've had a couple of quite long runs on it and I've been very impressed. Now I have to say that I've had two different types of e-bike before, two conversion kits. The first one was from Cyclotricity, and that one had a rack on the back and a battery on the back, and the motor, the hub wheel, was on the front. However, you can see here that the battery is in the middle of the bike and the motor wheel, the hub, is on the back. Now overall, compared to the rack batteries, this is much lighter, much easier to cycle. When you're up to an average speed with this bike, because it's a hybrid and the tyres aren't too thick, they're more road tyres, but they can go on tracks as well, this bike will freewheel quite easily. If you're on a level lane or road, once you're up to speed, this bike will run without any power, just cycling normally, easily, which clearly will extend the range. So if you're wanting to travel further distances by using the power as and when, then this bike is really good. I'll show you how it works. So the battery's here, and I'll just press it on down the bottom there. There it goes. I've got 3 bars, it's not a full battery. And then we come up to the display. I'll go through the different options. First of all, the mode. So this one will tell you how many total miles you've gone, which I've done 71 miles in it so far. And then about half an hour ago I went out on average 7.3 miles an hour with a top speed of just under 15 miles an hour. And then I need to show you the next mode. Right, so if we put the power on, the first one is Eco, that's about 20% power, a bit more. The next one is Tour, they name it. The next one, higher, more power, is Sport, and the next is Turbo. Now, and if you see also here, there's 56% battery left, so it's gone down two bars, it's 3 bars left. When you're cycling this bike, if you're on the flat and there's no wind, you can tootle along quite easily with the Eco on, and you can go a long way. And on this, it's saying now, with the battery I've got left, I have a range of 31 miles. So if I kept in the Eco mode, then I should do another 31 miles, and that's half a battery, just over. So if I have more power on, if I have more power on Tour, which is usually plenty, I'll do another 17 miles. And then if I have the higher power, let's say go up to the Sport mode, which is nearly full power from the battery, then obviously the mileage comes down 9 miles. And then Turbo, if you're going up a very steep hill, if you were to continue going up a steep hill, you'd only get 6 miles out of it. But the reality is that you generally don't need, when you're out, much more than, well, Eco or Tour. I'm mid-60s, 170 kilograms, so I'm not overweight. I went out the other day, we cycled to Henley-on-Thames, so we went from one side of the Chilterns to the other, and back, and it was about 35 miles. And when I got back, I still had I think it was 12 miles on the tour battery to go. So this bike can go easily, I would suggest, 45 miles on tour, with a combination of turning it lower down or not needing it, or freewheeling when you're clearly going downhill or when you're on the flat, and it makes it very comfortable riding. The point being is that the trip I went to Henley-on-Thames and back goes up and down the Chilterns, and that had two pretty steep hills going up to the top of the hills, down the other side, and on the way back there was another at least 2 if not 3 hills coming back. Now the total ascent in terms of feet was over 2,000 feet. So realistically, you can get, on average, an average person, I would suggest, with a reasonable amount of power, i.e. the tour, or feeding it down to eco, combination of the two, you should be able to get comfortably on most terrain 45 miles, if not a bit more, frankly. The way you use it, or you can use it, is when you come to a steep hill, a really steep hill, which there are a couple on the way we went recently, is that if you fire the power right up to, say, sport or turbo, and put some effort in yourself, you will scoot up the hill quite quickly. Obviously, clearly it's going to take a bit of battery, but that's the way to use it. And then when you're at the top, bring it back down to tour. So when you're in tour, you're easily doing, if you're on the flat, you can easily do 14-15 miles an hour, and you don't need much more than that, frankly. So the actual, talking about the battery is well, the hub, I should say, on the wheels, 250 watts, and it's 11 ampere 36 volts, so it's not too heavy. And you can easily, again, because it's a hybrid bike, you could take this off-road, and by that I mean, I don't mean mountain biking, I'm talking about tracks, actual cycle tracks, the old railway tracks. You can go on footpaths and stuff like that. I've had Carreras previously without power, obviously, and you can go on these tracks and it'll be okay. But obviously it is a little bit heavier, so if it was very muddy you'd be sliding about a bit. But generally, for somebody that wants an e-bike, this is probably, for me anyway, is pretty good. You can get you know, circular routes in the summer to other villages, stopping, turning the power off as you don't need it, and it's a comfortable ride, there's no doubt about it. So it has suspension at the front here, 75mm forks here, with a hydraulic and hydraulic brakes, discs front and back, and it's got a lovely stand there, which if you push for space in your garage, it's much easier if you can put your bike on a stand like that. So overall, I would say it's an excellent choice. I've actually put an adjustable stem on my for my handlebars, because I prefer an even more upright riding position. But overall, I think this looks pretty smart, this bike, and it does a good job. Halfords say it can go up to 60 miles, which you probably could, but you would have to be on low power and periods of cycling with no power, i.e. eco power and no power, for a fair bit of the time. It probably could do that. But if you're live in an area that's other than flat, realistically you've got to be looking 45-50 miles tops. Obviously, if it's windy weather, or if you're heavier than normal person, then you're not going to get quite that sort of range. But this, I think, for me anyway, this fits the bill. It's got 9 gears, which is quite sufficient, and what else can I tell you about it? Adjustable, well, obviously adjustable saddle for your height. The battery, if you get somewhere, obviously you've got to be, for security wise, the battery can simply, you unlock the key and then you pull the battery off. I'm not going to do it because I've only got one hand at the moment, and it's vice versa for putting it back in there. And that battery is not nearly as heavy as similar ones I've seen on the market. So I think this is far better than the Carrera Vengeance, which is a mountain bike, which just has thicker tyres and therefore more drag on the roads. Essentially, this is, for me anyway, designed to go further. Now, the fact that it's an e-bike, I've always been quite a sporty person in years gone past, and I've wondered that the fact that, you know, if you're on an e-bike, are you actually getting any actual fitness? Well, you're actually going to go out on this much more than a normal bike, and you do get a workout because you can choose what power level you want when you want to go up hills or even on the flat, and you do get a workout, there's no doubt about it. And you're out more on a regular basis, so it's good for fitness, really good for fitness. The only thing I would suggest is that if the power is unused for 5 minutes, and you can easily turn it off by the switch here, so there's the switch, and that turns, yeah, that's it turned off there, it's gone. I'll turn it back on, just press this top switch, and then it's coming back on, there it is. And then I say for operation it's a rocker switch here, so you can see it's off at the moment, it says off. The minute I press up 1, that's the eco power level, press again, that's the tour, the second one up power level, press again, that's the next level called sport, and the top level is turbo. So you can always see as you're going along, if whichever mode you're in, and usually I suspect it'll be tour, if you want to just check how far you've got, well, you know you've got 56% battery left, how far you can go on that battery and that level of support, you just change here the mode button at the top, and I'll just get it to, here it is, the mode. So let me just check, yeah, that says range. So on tour, if we keep it on tour all the time, I'm going to get another 17 miles to go, and I've got 56% battery. If I bring it down to eco, less power, then you can see I'm up to 31 miles to go. And just as a matter of interest, if I turn it off, it stays at 31. So let me just go back up. So on sport power, which is nearly full power, then obviously it suddenly reduces right down to 9 miles to go. So bearing in mind there's only half of battery power, I haven't powered it up completely today, there's only half of, or just marginally over half of power on the battery. You need to bear that in mind, but take it from me, on the tour level you can you should be able to get on most terrains 45 miles and perhaps more. But for me, the overall beauty is that as you're cycling along, you can say, right, I'm on the flat, you might have a little wind behind you possibly, you can turn it right off completely and just cycle as normal. And the longer you cycle as normal, the more you're going to preserve battery power. So if you live in a very flat area, then you almost certainly you'll go more than I would think, more than around here, you'd be up around the 50-55 mark. So the battery comes off quite easily. What else can I tell you? Now the thing is, I just want one more thing. If you do turn the system off, and that's the button here, there we go, I've turned it off there, just press off so it's gone. If you do turn the system off, after 5 minutes it will automatically, the whole thing will shut down, the system will shut down. So if you then want to turn it back on, what you should do is go back to the battery here and press the button at the bottom of the battery, which will show the bars left. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's 3 3 blue bars there at the moment, so it's just over half, and then your display unit will come up again there. If you try, after 5 minutes and you've not used the system, and you try to set it up again, literally by pressing this button here, then that may not work properly. You always have to, after 5 minutes it shuts down, go back and turn it back on at the main battery. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, in a minute, I'm going to stop this video, and then I'm going to go to a hill and show you in practice how this operates. But hopefully I've given you a good idea. As I say, it's got 9 gears. It's really easy shift here. So 5, 4, I'll flick it the other way, back up. You don't need any more than that. There's plenty. So overall, for a smooth bicycle ride, and on an e-bike, that you're not going to worry about running out of power, because remember, on some of these e-bikes that you'd pay a lot more money for, and the mountain e-bikes, they could be heavier. And the problem is, the heavier the bike, sometimes it's difficult to control. And not only that, it's actually almost impossible to pedal without power. Whereas this is probably the best you can get without power. You're not far off being a normal bike. So to me, it ticks all the boxes. What else can I tell you about it? It's a nice looking bike. Okay, it's a very compared to some of the e-bikes out here, it's got an alloy frame, trying to keep it as light as possible. It's comes with a 3-year guarantee from Halfords on all the electric parts, and of course there's a guarantee for a year if anything goes wrong on the bike anyway. And I think really it's well worth the money, I would suggest. Anyway, I'm going to go and give this a run now, and I'll try and show you what it's like going up a hill, so you get a better idea. But all in all, I would say it's a pretty good buy, and for the right sort of person who wants to keep fit, who wants to travel distances without worrying about the battery going, you'd be hard pressed to beat this, I think. Notwithstanding the fact I do like the design, I prefer a more sit-up, more comfortable ride than you see the old lycra-clad racing bike guys leaning down, looking at the ground. I'm more of a leisure cyclist, but in addition to that, I'm a cyclist that likes to keep fit. So this is the route I'm going to do. So you can see, hopefully, that it is going up a hill. It's about just over a mile, 1.2 it says, and ascending 75 foot. So it doesn't seem much in feet, but it's a long, gradual ascent. And I'll probably just go up on tour, but I'll try and show you as I do it. And that's a typical hill. The ones that I went when I did my 45-mile trip, or 35-mile trip and back, the hills were much steeper than that. But this, I'm going to show you an indication of how I use the power as I go up the hill. So there's the cycler just gone past, one of the road guys, got all his lycra on. Anyway, this is the hill. There's a car coming down in the distance, I don't know if you can quite see that, and there's a little tree right at the top. So this is the hill. It's about 75-80 foot an ascent, and it's just over a mile from where I am now up to the top, where there's a tiny little tree, you can just see at the top there. In fact, it's just beyond that basically. So to give you an idea, so I'm going to start off in eco mode. There we go, and see how we get on, and then I'll probably put the power up as we need it, just to give you an idea. So let's give it a try. So 12 miles an hour at the moment, you can see that. 12 eco mode. So a little bit of help, relatively straightforward, and this is just a slight incline. When I get to the bend up here, it starts to climb a bit hard, steeper. You see in the distance that there's a little red car going to the top there now. And remember, the assistance only takes you up to about 15.5 miles an hour, 16. Once you're beyond that, it's going to cut out. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going that speed, this will easily freewheel, or you could continue pedal without power, freewheel as I call it, and it's not difficult. And there's quite a wind actually in my face here, so a bit more. So I'm going to put the power up one more level. And to tour levels, the second one, which I think is basically do you for most stuff. There it goes, see it's yellow and it says tour, and very quickly I'm pedaling the same as before, but it's put me, it's easier, and it's put me up to 15-16 miles an hour without real much effort. And then we're getting a bit steeper now, so it's still, I'm sat on the saddle, I'm not trying too hard. Wind in my face, 8 or 9 mile an hour wind. Right, up to sport, up to turbo. And then as we get near the top, I'm just going to pull the power down to sport, down to tour, stop pedaling. I'm going to stop pedaling. Right, no pedaling now, and this bike just freewheels along easily, unlike many other heavier e-bikes. So I'll just pull over here. I'm not going to go down there. So I'm going to turn around and go back down in a minute. Back down that way. The wind seems to have changed actually. So I'm just freewheeling now, obviously I'm going down a hill. The point is, the minute you stop pedaling, the power will stop. So you're saving your battery again. So when you don't need to pedal, you just, even though it's on saying tour, there's no power coming through because I'm not pedaling. So I'm just freewheeling down here, no pedaling, all the way back down again. I think I reached, that was 20 miles an hour I think. I'm in gear 7. I won't change gear because I haven't got my I'm holding the camera. Down the hill. So that was a hill. I'm going to stop the filming just for a second and I'll wait till I get on a flat to show you. So remember that you have to pedal to get the power. The minute you stop pedaling, the power stops and saves the battery. So we're on the flat now and we're still into quite a bit of a wind. I'm just going to show you on tour how easy it is to pedal to get up to say 15 or even beyond that 16 miles an hour. Here we go. That's hardly any effort from me, and I say I am into quite a strong wind. So into the wind, 16 miles an hour on the second power level. So I'm still getting a little bit of a workout. Okay. Okay, I pulled up now. So 49% battery, so I've got half the battery left. Half the battery left. Now so just come from there, I averaged 11 miles an hour and maximum speed was 20 coming down that hill freewheeling. So if I change the mode here at the top button here, this tells me I've been out for 21 minutes and I've just 3.9 miles. Change the mode again and I've done 74 miles total in the bike, and the range on tour I've got another 15 miles to go. Well, bear in mind this is only half the battery. Then let's just change it, sorry. That would, yeah, all right. Bear in mind this is only half the battery, so basically that would be 30 miles on top of the whatever I've done, 4 miles or something. So that'd be 35 miles, assuming you were on tour all the time. But the fact of the matter is, as I said earlier, you change it between the lowest setting, eco, because on the flat you don't really need it. So, and then eco obviously says I've got another 26 miles to go on half the battery. So that would mean on eco, if I kept it on eco, that would be 52 miles I could go, and I've already done whatever it was, 4 miles. So that's not far short of 60 miles, which is what Halfords claim. So but realistically you're going to move between that on most terrains. You're going to move between that and that. So the real distance would be somewhere between the two, 15 and 26. So if you called it 20, that's not far off. 20 on half the battery means 40 miles on top of the 4 we've done. So there's the 45 miles. Of course, if you put it up to more power, then clearly there are 8 miles left, or doubling it because it's half the battery, so you'd have 16 miles left, but you're not going to be on that. You're only going to use that for a very short period if you're going up a really steep hill on that top one. In the main, you're always going to be pretty much on this one, between that one and eco, and for that matter, completely off. So that's the way it works. As I say, there's the battery 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars there. It's at 49%. So all in all, if you want to travel distance without worrying too much about losing power, and also you know, cycling without power, this is perfect. And I should add, by the way, I haven't changed the time up there. It's not 02:45. I've still got to do that. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. Pretty good. And you do get a workout when you go up the hills. You'll feel your quads working out really hard, and you'll be out of breath, because if you keep it on a low power but put loads of effort in, that's where you get the exercise. And as I said earlier, the fact of the matter is, the chances are you are going to go out much more on this bike than you would on a manual bike, and therefore it should keep you in better nick than you would normally do. So it's all in all, I think it's worth the money. And it was just, I think it was just under £1,400 from Halfords. So yep, I'd certainly recommend it.